Guys, welcome back to my channel, The Physio Sapien, and in this video we are going to learn about the most important topic for a physiotherapist, that is strengthening. Start with clearing the three basic terms, that are strength, power and endurance. So what is strength? Strength is the maximum amount of force that can be generated by a muscle or a group of muscle for a single maximum contraction. So strength is basically your force. Okay. Power is the explosiveness, that is the strength when it comes with velocity is your power. So power is strength, that is force into velocity. So it comes to force into what is velocity, meter per second, and these two come together to form work done per unit time. That is your power. And then comes endurance. What is endurance? Endurance means doing a minimal low intensity activity for a prolonged duration of time. Okay, so let's take an example for all the three. Strength. For example, people do strength training. They go to the gym and do squats, deadlifts and everything. So how much weight they can lift, how much force their muscle can generate to lift that weight, this is strength. Then how fast they can lift that weight. So force with the velocity, that is your power. And endurance, we all know endurance activities like running, walking, jogging, cycling, everything. So how long he can sustain that low intensity activity, that is your endurance. So one thing you need to know about these is there are two types of muscle fibers, type 1 fibers and type 2 fibers. Type 1 fibers are slow twitch fibers, while type 2 are fast twitch fibers. So type 1, that is slow twitch fibers, have more amount of hemoglobin, which helps in endurance activity, while type 2 fibers, which are low on hemoglobin but have high contractile power, they helps in generating more strength and more power. So this is one thing which you need to know from a practical perspective. So next, coming on to factors affecting muscle contraction, they are energy stores and blood supply, fatigue, recovery, age, psychological and cognitive factors. So first we are going to for energy stores and blood supply. Energy stores such as ATP and glucose are required for proper muscle contraction. Blood supply helps in bringing the nutrition and oxygen to the muscles and carrying away the waste products which are formed while the muscle contracts. So all these help in proper muscle contraction. Fatigue. Fatigue is diminished response to repeated stimulus. So why does fatigue occur? Due to depletion of ATP, due to depletion of potassium ions and accumulation of lactic acid. There are two types of fatigue, muscular fatigue and cardiovascular fatigue. Next, coming on to recovery. Recovery is of two types, that is intersession and intrasession. Intrasession recovery is between two sets which helps in replenishing the ATP and oxygen to the muscle, while intrasession is between two different workout days or different sessions which helps in the recovery of the muscle or healing of the muscle. Coming on to age. A person gains strength as he ages linearly till the age of puberty, and after that he loses the strength gradually. So for a male, the age is later than the female. Next, coming on to psychological and cognitive factors, which include attention and motivation. If a person gives attention to an activity or an exercise, he is able to perform more better, while motivation and feedback helps in pushing the limits of the person, giving psychological feedback, positive feedback, which helps in increasing the capability of the person to perform. Next, we are going to talk about the three principles which govern the strengthening program. These are the overload principle, the state principle and the reversibility principle. What does the overload principle say? It states that to increase the muscle performance, you need to apply a load which is greater than the metabolic capacity of the muscle. So for example, you need to increase the strength of a muscle. What you need to do? You need to increase the amount of load progressively to increase its strength. Similarly, to increase the endurance of a person, what you need to do? You need to increase the number of repetitions as well as the duration of contraction of the muscle, so that it helps in the increasing the endurance of the muscle. Next is the SET principle. SET stands for specific adaptation to imposed demands. It is an extension of the Wolff's law, which states that body systems adapt to load over a period of time. So it helps in planning a program to achieve your specific goals. For example, you need a muscle to improve its endurance rather than the strength. The main goal is on endurance. So what you need to do, you need to increase the amount of repetitions which the muscle is undergoing, and that will ultimately help in increasing the endurance of the muscle. Next is reversibility principle. All the gains you have during this program are transient. These are not permanent. So if you stop working out, all the gains will be lost. There is one thing called as maintenance program, which an athlete goes to maintain the gains which are gained through this program. Or else, if he is not training for 1 or 2 weeks, he starts to lose his gains gradually, not at once, but he starts to lose, and it loses until all the gains are lost. So, reversibility, said, and overload principle. To determinants of resistance training program, which is given by the mnemonic ASIP formed, very important. Here the small alphabets are not taken into consideration. So A for alignment. Alignment of the muscle fibers. The angle of pull of the muscle which is to be trained is very important. As for stabilization, stabilization can be internal as well as external. It helps in avoiding the substitution by another muscle. Intensity, the amount of load, the amount of weight we have to put, the amount of resistance we have to put on the muscle is decided by intensity. P for periodization. Periodization is breaking the training program into different phases or cycle which has varying intensities, rest interval, volume, and frequency. F for frequency. Frequency is the number of sessions a person is going to have in a day or a week. Order of exercises should be large muscles followed by smaller muscles, and multi-joint movements followed by single joint movements. So next is rest interval. Rest interval is the time given for the recovery of the person. It is usually 1 to 1.5 minutes for mild intensities, 2 to 3 minutes for moderate intensity, and more than 3 minutes for severe intensity. Next is mode of exercise. Mode of exercise means various factors including the type of exercise, type of muscle contraction, arc of the movement, the type of resistance to be applied. All these are included in mode of exercise. Next is duration. Duration is the amount of period required for the changes to be noticed. It is 2 to 3 weeks for neural adaptation and 6 to 12 weeks for hypertrophy. Next is volume. Volume is the number of reps per set into the load applied. So that comes out to volume. Velocity of the exercise, the speed of the exercise. If you want to control the weight slowly, that is eccentric movement, or concentric, the speed is known as velocity. It is integration of exercises into functional activity. This is exercises which help in the replication of day-to-day activities which the person needs to do. Next, coming on to physiological adaptations to resistance exercises, which include adaptations to the skeletal muscle, neural system, metabolic system and enzymatic activity, body composition, and connective tissue. Kistner has a very good table for all these changes, and I will continue teaching all these in the Kistner.
So here we are in Kistner and we are going to discuss about the physiological adaptations in resistance exercises. So there are two types of resistance exercises, that is strength training adaptation and endurance training adaptations. So first, coming on to skeletal muscle structure, the changes in skeletal muscle structure. In strength training, we see muscle hypertrophy and hyperplasia. There is fiber recomposition from type 2B to type 2A, and there is no change in type 1 to type 2 ratio. Here there is a decrease or no change in capillary bed density and mitochondrial density and volume. Similarly, now coming on to endurance training, the skeletal muscle changes seen in endurance training is there is minimal or no muscle hypertrophy, but there is increased capillary bed density and increased mitochondrial density and volume. So this helps in training the muscles so that a long sustained contraction of a muscle can be sustained. Next is neural system. In the strength training adaptation, we have increased motor unit recruitment. There is increased rate of firing and increased synchronization of firing. Therefore, it helps in generation of more force. Okay, but there is no change in the endurance in neural system. Next is metabolic system and enzymatic activity. These are both almost similar. Okay, there is increase in ATP and phosphocreatine storage. There is increased myoglobin storage. There is increased creatine phosphokinase storage. There is increased myokinase, but there is no change in the triglyceride storage. All these are same in endurance training, but only difference is there is increased storage of triglycerides in endurance training. Next is body composition. There is increased lean body mass, that is the muscle mass, okay, in your strength training, and there is decrease in body fat percent. But in endurance training there is no change in lean body mass, but there is decrease in body fat percent. And the last one is connective tissue changes. There is increased tensile strength of tendons, ligaments, and connective tissue in the muscle. There is increased bone density, and there is increase in the bone mineral density, but there is no change or little change in the bone mass. And similarly, in endurance training, there is increase in tensile strength of tendons, ligaments, and connective tissue of the muscle, and there is increase in bone mineralization. So all these are the physiological adaptations resulting to resistance training.
The various types of strengthening exercises are static or isometric, dynamic or isotonic, which are divided into two parts based on the force generation. We have concentric and eccentric, and based on the resistance, it can be constant or variable. Next, we have isokinetic exercises, open kinematic chain and closed kinematic chain exercises, and manual and mechanical resistance exercises. First, static or isometric exercises. Isometric, so the length of the muscle fiber does not changes. So what changes is the tone of the muscle, the tension in the muscle. Where do we use it? When there is an external cast, when the person cannot move the limb, we give isometric exercises so that muscle atrophy, muscle wasting is minimized. So the next is dynamic or isotonic exercises. Isotonic, so the tone of the muscle is the same while the length of muscle fiber changes. So it can increase or decrease, and hence it is divided into concentric and eccentric. In concentric exercises, the muscle fiber shortens. When the force is generated and the tension is produced, the muscle contracts. Example, during a bicep curl, this is the length and normal position. When the biceps contract, it is shortened. Next, coming on to eccentric contraction. Here, the force generated is less than the external load, which helps in lengthening of the muscle. So, considering tricep extension. So, my hand placement is like this. So, contracting the muscle, contracting the tricep muscle, extends my elbow, and this is known as concentric extension, concentric contraction. Now, the external load is gravity, which pulls my hand downwards, and thus my tricep contracts and there is slow lowering. The force generated here is less than the external load, which helps in the lengthening of the muscle fibers while it is eccentrically contracting. Next is constant and variable resistance. So constant resistance is provided by dumbbells or weight cuffs, while variable resistance is provided by resistance band, which increases the resistance as it lengthens. Third is isokinetic exercises. Isokinetic, so here the velocity, the angular velocity of the joint is constant and the resistance changes according to the preset angular velocity. Next is open kinematic chain and closed kinematic chain exercises. I have taught these topics in my video Introduction to Biomechanics. The links for the same will be there in the description. But to summarize, open kinematic chain is when the distal end of the joint is moving, while closed kinematic chain is when the proximal end of the joint is moving. And open kinematic chain, in open kinematic chain, only one group of muscle is working, and it is a isolated exercise, while closed kinematic chain, more than one joint is moving and it is considered as compound movement. Next, we have manual and mechanical resistance. Manual resistance is the one applied by the therapist himself, while mechanical resistance is applied by a machine, a dumbbell, or a weight cuff. Manual resistance has its own pros and cons. The pro is that the therapist can manipulate the resistance and he can stop giving the resistance whenever he wants to, while the con is that there is no accuracy in the resistance. While the mechanical resistance has its own pros and cons. The pro is that the resistance is constant and you can note down and progress according to the resistance of previous exercises, while the con is that you cannot stop or manipulate the resistance during the activity.